and welcome to the Business of Data podcast. I'm your host, Catherine King, and it's a pleasure to have you join us today. In this series, we'll be speaking to senior data analytics leaders to share their experiences, challenges, and insights. Let's go ahead and dive straight into today's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Business of Data podcast. We have a fantastic session for you today. This is going to be all about understanding risk and training data, specifically how to price a risk based off of limited historical data and how to apply scholarly and manufacturing knowledge in new ways. Now, a pod first, we don't have just one guest, we in fact have two. Joining me today, we have Antton Peña, who is the founder of Flock, as well as Rayno Mostert, who's the actuarial data scientist from Flock as well. So welcome both today.
Thank you.
Before we get going, just a quick couple of facts about both Rayno and Antton as well as Flock. So Flock launched Europe's first pay-as-you-fly drone insurance product in 2018. Today, the startup's digital underwriting platform offers a range of data-driven insurance and risk management products for the drone industry. Antton is a keen entrepreneur. As Flock's founder, he wants to create a world where integrated, seamless insurance empowers the future of the connected and autonomous vehicles. Antton is also co-founder and product lead for Fairwill, a digital will writing service. Now, Rayno, who's smiling at us now, earned his master's in commerce actual science from Stellenbosch University in South Africa. And Rayno actually grew up in a small farm town just north of Lesotho and worked in Cape Town before moving over to sunny London. So like I say, welcome both. I'm so excited for this episode. Keen on Flock, so thanks so much for joining us.
So are we. Looking forward to this excruciating questions.
No, I'm going to be nice. I'm always nice to my guests. So Antton, let's drive in. Drones are still somewhat of a fledgling industry. How did you first become interested in them? Are you a hobbyist? What's the story?
So I've always had a bit of an interest in this mobility space. I was trained as a designer and very quickly ended up working in the auto industry, imagining the future of vehicles and how we're going to be moving from point A to point B. So I guess the next natural progression was really drones. Back at uni, after working for a bit, I started looking into this space as the next wave of transportation we're going to start seeing in cities, and realized that it was coming, but that there were a bunch of challenges with it, right? And that's when we started looking into risk, ended up developing a technology that would use third-party data sources to quantify that risk. Initially, not just for insurance, it was predominantly risk intelligence tool, but we very quickly realized that had a massive application in the world of insurance, and that's how we ended up with this concept of drone insurance.
Fantastic. Now, Rayno, you also are fairly interested in lots of new types of autonomous vehicles, and it goes beyond drones for you as well. You're very interested in self-driving cars. What is it about this tech that's so interesting to you?
Well, I mean, I've had an interest in self-driving cars actually since 2011. I think when it was spurred by a TED talk by Sebastian Thrun, who at the time was heading up the Google self-driving car project. And then during my final year at university, I took a module in machine learning, and self-driving cars at that time were just the most fun application of machine learning you could have, right, as a uni student. If you're trying to teach a computer to do anything, teaching it to drive is actually quite fun. You know, there are so many components to it. There's the vision, how it sees and perceives the world around it, to machine control, how it actually steers, how it deals with drift, to object recognition, how it knows that the set of pixels it's receiving from the video feed is actually a stop sign, for example, or it was an incredibly interesting application at the time, and something I've always been interested in.
Brilliant. It's certainly a very of all the topics that we discuss on the Bod Pod, this is certainly one of the most interesting. Just don't tell my other guests. So Anton, let's talk about Flock. For those who perhaps aren't as familiar with the company and with the story, can you give us kind of the elevator pitch for what you guys do and where you started and where you are now?
Sure. So look, I gave a bit of a starter at the beginning. In a nutshell, what we do at Flock is insure drones and help them be safe, right? The way we do it is by using technology, because we're operating in a space where, as you mentioned at the beginning, there's not much data and there's still not yet a very, very strong academic understanding of what risk is, right? And that's where we come in. What we do in the background so our customers can have fair, flexible, and transparent policies is capture a ton of data like what's around you, where you're flying, things like buildings, roads, right, either different structures. We've got a very good understanding of the changing environments around you as well, with things like hyperlocal weather, for example. A very strong understanding of what drone that is, down to the weight it's got, the kinetic energy it carries, the way it is constructed, and a fairly good understanding of what you are as a pilot. And all that data brought together gives us a very good understanding of what risk is, which we use for two different things, right? First, price insurance, to understand how we can put a price to that policy that will make sure that we can cover that customer when things go wrong, but also create a strong business for the underwriters we work with. But at the same time, we also use that understanding of risk to help the customer develop a view of what they can do to mitigate it, right? We generate a beautiful win-win scenario, we like to say, because we're helping the customer have less incidents. It is not just about protecting them, it is about working with them, which at the same time also helps underwriters have a healthier business, which allows us to provide a better product to the customer, right? So that technology that sits at the core of our offering is what allows us to do all of that. The second thing we do, on top of being able to use all of that data, it's offer products that have never been offered before, right? We've got, as you said, a pay-as-you-fly offering, which is the first one in Europe, where our customers have an app where they log in, they tell us where they're flying, and we sell them insurance for as little as an hour. And we then have a number of different, very flexible subscription products as well that go all the way up to covering the biggest enterprise customers in the world, right? These customers are customers that have fleets of drones of up to thousands of drones that not always are happy paying for an annual policy, right? So what we do is, again, use that risk intelligence technology to be able to underwrite on the go, underwrite as customers use their fleets, and get them to only pay for the cover they need when they need it, while also offering that risk intelligence value I mentioned.
No, I love the idea of it being win-win as well. Now, you've been very humble in what you've said there, but you're now providing and ensuring, you know, some of the biggest name brands that we know, BBC, Netflix, to just name a couple. What do you think has been the secret to such rapid growth over the past few years? It does really seem that you've gone from 0 to 100 so quickly. So what's been kind of the secret of that success?
Wow, that's a really hard question to answer. I guess we've done many things that put us in this position. But for us, the first thing is making sure that we understand this industry. This industry is still new, and it requires a lot of expertise to react to the challenges it's got. And second, listen to our customers, right? I think often the insurance industry, because the legacy it carries, focuses on the customer, or although they focus on that, they are often constrained by what that legacy allows them to do, right? We've tried to break as much as we could of that, while accepting we have to work with this industry, right? Like, we're not here to disrupt anything, we're here to work with the insurance industry, but we've got a massive focus on what the customer needs. And then the third layer to that, it's ensuring that you understand how technology is going to change this future, right? Like, it's no longer about just entering a few input fields and getting a price. It is about understanding how the technology you've got changes risk, how the technology you've got is going to change risk in the future, and about positioning ourselves in a way that allows us to react to that, which really connects with that second layer, which is about reacting to the customer needs. Right?
Yeah, fantastic. I love the customer centricity to how you guys work. Now, Rayno, you've been sat there smiling and nodding, and I'm going to come to you now. So the drone industry is not particularly old. So how do you go about pricing something which doesn't have a lot of historical data? You know, you can't look back 20, 30 years and say, well, this is the risks that have been, so we can kind of work out the price. How does that work?
Yeah, so things get a bit complicated, but I mean, for some context, so the way that I was taught to model loss, and if you take an actuarial course in general insurance, this is kind of what they'll teach you, is that you have you model frequency and severity separately. You essentially look at historical data. So, for example, for motor insurance, you know, humans have been driving cars and causing accidents for over a century. Right, so you look at that, and then you quantify both the probability that an accident is going to happen, and then what we refer to as a conditional severity. So should an accident happen, how much are you going to claim? But with drones, like you've mentioned, we just simply don't have historical claims data. It doesn't really exist. Especially in on the liability claim side, you know, like a person injury or building damage. So if you don't have historical claims data, you need to have something a lot more granular, something that models the risk almost like from the ground up. And Flock's approach to this has been, and Anton, stop me if I reveal too much, but has been almost like a simulation type approach, right? Where to quantify the probability that you're going to have a crash, we look at numerous factors. We look at the type of drone you're flying. We consider, you know, the weather, the wind speed, the probability of rainfall, if it's going to rain, how much is it going to rain? And then for each drone, we have safety ratings, right? We know in which conditions that drone was tested. We know that the manufacturer has tested it for, you know, these set weather conditions, and we can compare those conditions to the conditions that you're flying in. Together with this, there are numerous studies done on drone safety and you know, the drone impact and what it could cause that we can integrate with this. So, you know, we also know what you're going to crash into, right? If you quote for an hour's worth of insurance, we do so for our pay-as-you-fly product. We do so for the location that you've specified in. So we can look at all of the buildings within that flight radius, and for each of these, we can estimate how busy they are at the time of day that you're flying in. For each of them, we calculate like an estimated number of people that might be exposed to the risk of you flying into them. We also know how heavy your drone is and how large it is. So we can estimate like a risk, like the type of damage that it can cause or the injury that it might cause to a person. So all of this information is aggregated together, and you end up with like a very deep understanding of what are the driving factors behind our expectation of loss, and ultimately the insurance price that the customer sees.
Fantastic. Now, you mentioned there at the start that, you know, obviously vehicle insurance, they have the perk of the fact that, you know, people have been crashing into each other for 100 years. But do you think there's things that you can learn about this different non-historic data mindset and using training data to price policies? Do you think there's things that other types of insurance could learn from that way of thinking rather than just purely historic data?
Well, I believe, and I certainly hope, that insurers are looking beyond only historical data. Using historical data for modeling is only appropriate if what you're modeling isn't changing very quickly over time, or if it changes in ways that you can predict, right? And this is not what we're seeing, particularly in the motor space, but currently we're seeing very rapid technological and social change, right? Just focusing on motor insurance, right? Vehicles are changing incredibly quickly. They're a lot more electric. They have got way more active safety features built in, like collision avoidance, traffic assist, lane keeping assistance, and in some cases you have like even automated steering on long stretches of highway. How relevant is data from 5 years ago in pricing insurance for next year's vehicles? If all you have is historical claims data, right? How do you price insurance in a world where people only go to the office half as much as they used to, or a world where the number of delivery vehicles on the road increases by 20% each year, or where the number of cyclists suddenly increases tenfold, which is TfL's prediction for cycling in London post-lockdown. If you don't have a granular ground-up understanding of risk, and all you've done for the past decade is fit lines to claims data, I don't think you're in a position where you can confidently say that you understand the risk that you're insuring. So I do believe, and I certainly hope, that other insurers are also considering more than just historical claims data.
Yeah. Brilliant. Now, I'm keen to ask, because Anton made such a point of the kind of the customer centricity of Flock. Now, although the risk calculations you do are extremely complex, I mean, just the different factors you've listed off there are so plentiful. Flock really does seem to pride itself on being transparent with customers about prices and how they're calculated. But how do you distill the complexities down for the layman drone pilot in such a short time frame? I mean, you're talking about, like an hour time frame. How do you get that information to them in a way that they can digest fully?
So I don't necessarily think it's as complex. Flock prides itself on transparency, but the pieces of the puzzle that go into calculating an expectation of loss are relatively obvious, right? And it's something that we all think about inherently, right? Drone, the first thing you do is look at the weather forecast. If it's going to rain, maybe that's not such a good idea. If it's going to be, the more windy it is, the riskier your drone flight is. If you're flying next to a school over lunchtime, that's probably not a good idea. So it's just about displaying each of those risk factors to a pilot so that they're aware of them and aware of how their insurance price is calculated. I think we're in a privileged position, in comparison to motor insurance, where your price depends on seemingly arbitrary factors that you can do nothing about, like your age or your postcode or your credit score. I think we're very lucky in drone insurance, and especially in our usage-based products, that our price is based off of the actual risk that our customers can understand. And I don't think it's too difficult to point out those factors to them, because it's something that they too should and mostly are aware of.
It makes sense. It makes sense, like you said. Okay, then a question for you both. Anton, I'll come to you first. So over the past 5 years, what would you say is the greatest lessons you've learned about the state of kind of data analytics in the insurance industry as you've seen it unfold with Flock's journey?
Interesting. I would say I don't think everyone is with us when walking this path, right? And I think that the big learning has been, it's not just about using this data. It's about helping others understand how you're using this data. And when I say others, I start with customers, and customers have to understand why it is important for them to tell us where they're flying, for example. I also talk about all the partners, like underwriters, right, that need a very good understanding of how we use data to do a better job at the processes they used to run without this data. And that requires a lot of work, right? So as Rayno was saying, I think Rayno has beautifully made it sound simple, but a ton of the calculations that go under the hood are incredibly complicated. And you cannot forget that that on its own achieves very little. Where the magic really happens is when others can actually interact with that. Customers via beautiful interfaces, underwriters via understanding how our underwriting system works, etc. Right? So that has been the big learning. It is not just about developing a big complex system that works. It's about engaging everyone else with that.
Fantastic. Rayno, same question to you.
Yeah, I think Anton has answered it really well. Insurers currently, especially in commercial lines, are not are not necessarily as focused, in my opinion, on like past data, right? It's commercial insurance by nature is really difficult to find data for, right? You're insuring a large building or a large stadium, and you don't have thousands of examples of this having happened before, or you're insuring an airline. So the mentality in commercial insurance is very different from personal lines. So like one struggle we have is communicating that to an underwriter, right? Saying that we do understand the risk that we're presenting, and we have a confident understanding of the expectation of loss that we put forward, and we don't just thumbsuck price estimates based off of what everyone else is asking. Our pricing is fair and transparent and based off of the actual loss that a customer represents to us. So I think that was more a comment on like the commercial insurance industry rather than the industry as a whole.
Fantastic. Now, Anton, I think it's fair to say the last few months have been anything but smooth sailing. So for you, taking a very macro view, both in what you do within Flock, but also Fairwill, what has the last couple months within this COVID era taught you about the way things run and work at Flock? Obviously, I assume you're remote working right now. How's that been for you as a leader in this space?
So just a small clarification, although I founded Fairwill 6 years ago, I'm no longer involved with them. I've got a very good relationship, and they're doing a very, very good job, especially these days, but I'm no longer involved. With Flock, I think we've been incredibly lucky from two perspectives. I think the team has reacted incredibly well to it. Rayno, for example, was hired during lockdown, and I've only had one face-to-face meetup with him, but he's been an amazing addition to the team, and he's onboarded incredibly well. So I think it is a massive testament to them that they adopted this new reality nicely. Yes, there are some small challenges. You have to have more face-to-face over video, and people do miss this like social interaction sometimes, but I think it's been incredibly smooth for us. The second lucky bit we've had, the second area where we've been lucky, it's with the industry, right? There's been a bit of a push to use this technology. There have been a number of great applications that have sped up in delivery because of the wider situation. Things like drug delivery tests for the NHS that have been done via drone, right? And all these things have given us opportunities to help our customers beyond the applications we would help them with before, and expand our business as well, right? There are a number of use cases that we've published, right? This NHS trial included a number of eVTOL vehicles, almost flying car vehicle customers we've helped lately as well. So I think we've been very lucky from both perspectives internally. Very small transition externally. The business kept ticking, something not many businesses have seen. So it hasn't been too bad for us.
Well, that is fantastic to hear. And like you've just touched on there, the fantastic work you guys are doing enabling those NHS deliveries. I mean, it is a real time for transformation. So Rayno, kind of thinking in the data analytics space, what do you think COVID-19, what impact do you think it's going to have or having on the insurance industry's transformation, both in data, digital? How are you seeing the landscape?
Well, I think one thing that it's shown us is that usage-based insurance is the right approach. We've seen in the past few months motor insurers refunding clients due to reduced exposure. Right? I mean, I see that essentially as a recognition that the industry says, the way to fairly price insurance is by looking at how much your customers use and like the risk that they pose. So I think it's just been confirmation that usage-based insurance is the way forward, especially in scenarios like this, right? If you had a Flock policy Flock usage-based insurance policy, you would have been charged nothing if if your business wasn't operating during lockdown.
Yeah.
Instead of being charged some monthly amount, regardless of what your business or what the risk is that you are posing to an insurer. I think that's been one major key learning and confirmation of what we're doing at Flock as well.
And I suppose that, again, it interweaves with that customer experience as well. You're very conscious that you don't want people paying for stuff they're not using, but actually the increase in experience is going to help your business go forward out of the COVID era as we slowly but surely come back to some sort of normality. And then on that theme then, Anton, what is going to be kind of top of your to-do list in terms of innovation and projects for 2021? Have you got anything on the horizon you're able to share with us?
Loads of ideas, loads of projects, definitely a couple we can share. So we're pushing really, really hard to expand the horizons of Flock. We are getting authorized to operate from Europe. We already sell, we already provide insurance in Europe, but we don't have proper licensing in Europe. So that's going to be one of the big projects coming up shortly. We are also restructuring some of our products internally. Customers won't feel much of many of the changes in the surface, but that's going to allow us to serve customers much faster. We know that often delivery speed is what really provides a better service to our customers. Sometimes they need something of it tomorrow, and when you're insuring big drones, for example, tomorrow, it's tricky, right? So we are making a number of changes to make sure that our customers get more, faster, better. And then many other projects that I'm going to keep for myself, but definitely keep an eye on us because you will hear about it.
Fantastic. Well, I think we should pop in another podcast in the diary in say 6 months' time, and then we can see how it's all gone and what other things you're able to share with us. But for now, I'm looking at my clock and I think that's all we've got time for today. Thank you both for joining me. It's been absolutely wonderful listening and talking with you guys today. And as always, I do encourage audience members listening and watching to connect with both Anton and Rayno on LinkedIn as well, and follow and enjoy their journey. Thank you both so much.
I would say we've talked a lot about like very abstract and complex topics today, but everything comes together very, very nicely when you see real time and working. You can see our technology work in flockcover.com. Just try to get a quote and you will see how it works. Hourly policies have a beautiful experience where we'll show you the risk of you flying a drone in a specific area. So please give it a go and sit it instead of us hearing us talk about it.
Brilliant. Thank you both so much.
Cool. Thanks.
What a wonderful episode. I loved that we got both the macro and the micro perspectives throughout. Flock are always doing new and exciting things, so I'll always jump at the chance to understand what they're up to next. As always, make sure you're subscribed to our Business of Data platform, as well as following us on our social pages as well, so that you're first in line for all of our content. As always, stay safe, look after yourself, and I'll see you on our next episode.